You ever have one of those days? You get to the end, you look back, and you just wonder, where did all that time go? It feels like it just vanished into a fog of distraction, endless scrolling, and a million little things that didn't matter. Well, that feeling is pretty much universal. So today, we're going to tackle that head-on by asking some of the greatest minds, both from today and from history, to join us for a little thought experiment.
All right, let's just dive right in with the big question. Imagine for a second you had total control. No job to go to, no boss breathing down your neck, no algorithm trying to hijack your attention. It's just you with a completely blank 24-hour canvas. How would you fill that time? What would you do to really maximize your creativity, your learning, and just your overall well-being? That's the core puzzle we're going to try to solve today.
Now, to even begin to answer that, we got to understand the hardware we're working with, right? So, meet the CEO of your brain. It's a region called the anterior mid-cingulate and anterior cingulate cortex. Yeah, that's a mouthful, so let's just call it the AMCC/ACC. These are the little bits of your brain that light up when you decide to do something hard, like forcing yourself to go to the gym or finally cracking open that difficult book. They are literally your engines of effort. But pure effort isn't the whole story, is it? We also have this other amazing, kind of magical state called hypnagogia. You know that feeling? That drifty twilight state right as you're falling asleep? It's not just your brain being weird. It's an idea laboratory. It's where your brain starts mashing up concepts in totally new ways, making these brilliant, unexpected connections. So the real challenge is this. How do you design a day that feeds both that focused, get-it-done CEO and that wandering creative genius?
Okay, so let's lay out the ground rules for our thought experiment. We're going to assume about 30% of your day is for sleep. That's a given, absolutely non-negotiable. The really interesting part is what's left over. This big chunk right here, 70% of your day, or about 17 hours. That's your budget. How you invest it for the best possible return. So here's our game plan for today. We're going to start by digging into some wisdom from the past. Then we'll see what modern neuroscience has to say about hacking our brains. After that, we'll get some practical strategies for what's called deep work, consider the vital role of our relationships, and then finally, we'll pull it all together to help you design your own perfect day. First up, let's turn to the titans of thought. What can we learn from the people who were thinking about the good life, well, long before the first phone ever buzzed with a notification? And right away, we run into this fascinating tension. On one side, you've got someone like Albert Einstein. He was all about imagination and what he called combinatorial play, just letting the mind wander freely to connect ideas. But on the other side, you have Aristotle, who argued that human flourishing comes from discipline, from virtuous habits, and from structured, focused thinking. So one says protect the wandering, the other says protect the focus. And then you have media theorist Marshall McLuhan, who drops this quote that feels like he wrote it yesterday. He warned us that the tools we use, they're not neutral. They actually change how we think. And here's the kicker. He basically predicted that the medium of the infinite scroll would reshape the whole idea of leisure and turn it into something else entirely. Constant, low-grade distraction. Okay, so the philosophers gave us this incredible framework, this tension between wandering and focus, connection, and distraction. Now, let's fast forward. What happens when we take that foundation and ask modern neuroscientists to design the perfect day based on everything we now know about the brain? Neuroscientist Dr. Wendy Suzuki, well, she does not mince words. For her, the entire conversation about a perfect day has to start with movement. She says it's not just for your body, it is the single most powerful thing you can do to upgrade your brain's performance, your mood, and your focus. Like right now. And this is where it gets super interesting. Take a look at the schedules proposed by two of today's leading neuroscientists, Dr. Andrew Huberman and Dr. Suzuki. I mean, look how much they agree on. A huge chunk for high-effort learning and a teeny tiny slice for passive leisure. But notice that one key difference. Suzuki carves out a massive 20% for physical activity. Why? She argues it's the best way to boost something called BDNF, which is basically like miracle grow for your brain cells. It helps them grow and build new connections. So we've got the philosophy and we've got the neuroscience. Now, let's get really practical. How in the world do you actually do this in a world that feels like it was designed to shatter your focus? Well, this is where the deep work specialists come in. The philosophy of author Cal Newport is just so simple and powerful. It's kind of a modern spin on Aristotle's disciplined focus, but it's perfectly retooled for our digital age. His point is that in today's world, the ability to focus without distraction, what he calls deep work, is becoming incredibly rare. And because it's rare, it's becoming incredibly valuable. So his advice? Stop treating your attention like it's an infinite commodity and start protecting it like it's gold. And this really shows you his method. This isn't about wishful thinking. It's a concrete system. First, you schedule deep work into your calendar like it's a meeting you cannot miss. Second, you have to be absolutely ruthless about cutting out digital noise. Third, automate or simplify all those boring tasks to free up mental energy. And fourth, and this is so important, replace that mindless scrolling with high-quality leisure that actually recharges your creative batteries. I love how the comedian Hasan Minhaj frames this whole battle. He sees it as a creative fight. Think about it. Your brain is the stage where the story of your life is playing out. The real question is, are you writing the script? Or are you letting some algorithm write it for you by just feeding you an endless stream of content? But wait a minute. What if we're missing something huge here? What if the perfect day isn't just about my own individual productivity or my creativity? What if it's really about connection? And this is the profound, powerful counterpoint from psychotherapist Esther Perel. She argues that we've become so obsessed with optimizing ourselves as individuals that we've forgotten what actually makes us human. We've been sold this bill of goods, these algorithmic feeds that promise connection, but in reality, they just foster isolation. For her, a truly well-spent day isn't optimized around tasks, it's built around the messy, beautiful, and absolutely essential work of real, genuine human intimacy. Okay, wow. We have heard from philosophers, neuroscientists, productivity gurus, and relationship experts. That's a lot of different perspectives, but now for the really cool part. Let's bring it all together and see what surprising patterns start to show up. Let's start with what might be the single most shocking point of agreement. When you average out the recommendations from almost every single one of our thinkers, what percentage of your waking hours do they think you should spend on passive stuff, like scrolling social media? 5%. That's it. That's just 15 minutes out of a 17-hour day. And this chart just says it all, doesn't it? I mean, look at that tiny little bar for passive leisure compared to the huge bars for high-effort learning and creative activity. The message here is overwhelming. You have to drastically cut back on passive consumption and reinvest all of that time and energy into things that actually challenge your mind and nurture your soul. And here it is, the grand synthesis, the whole shebang on one screen. You can see every single proposed schedule, all the way from Einstein and Aristotle to Huberman and Perel. And yeah, the exact numbers change a little bit from person to person, but the underlying philosophy, it is remarkably consistent across the board. They all prioritize effortful learning, creative play, and physical movement over just passively consuming what an algorithm serves you. So what's the bottom line here? The blueprint for a better day, according to some of our best and brightest minds, is actually pretty clear. Step 1, be absolutely ruthless about limiting mindless scrolling. Step 2, dedicate big, protected blocks of time to focused work and playful creativity. Step 3, move your body every single day. And step 4, protect that precious creative state right before you go to sleep from the blue light of a screen. So we've laid it all out. The advice from ancient Greece, from the modern neuroscience lab, from all these brilliant thinkers. The research and the wisdom, it's all on the table. But now the question isn't really what they would do. The real question is, what will you do? What's your blueprint going to be?